Well, guys, what is up? It is almost playoff time for fantasy leagues, or it's week two if you're in a certain league. But I won't go into too much about
Drama.
that. Welcome in. This is the Next Man Up. I'm Matt at Fantasy Ferret on Twitter. I'm an athletic trainer. If you're new to the show, I'm joined by my PT buddies here. Um, we Eric was mentioning before the show, we realized we haven't really been giving our credentials
Who are we?
lately, Richmond, and we are like, hey, we should probably start doing that so people at least have a general idea of what we're talking about.
We know a little bit. We know a little bit about a lot of
Sometimes
it.
I dabble. But Richmond, how's fantasy life been treating you?
Well, I haven't been here in a while, and it's been up, down, in between. I'm like right on the edge of playoffs for a lot of my leagues. In a lot of my leagues, I somehow have been having great weeks, but somehow end up playing the other guy who's having a great week. So
Well,
that happened in quite a few leagues last week, but it's
life.
fantasy
It sounds like excuses.
life.
Your
Excuses.
flag plant last week, Devin Duvernay actually came through with a few catches. So
Yeah, he's a real stand-up guy. Willing to flag plant him any day of the week.
I think he outscored Kittle. Matter of
he
fact,
probably did. He had like 6 catches or something. But
Looking it
anyway,
up. He
couple
did, yeah.
couple rushes.
He outscored him.
Eric, what about you? You gonna make the playoffs in all of your leagues?
I am certainly going to make the playoffs in one league. I was sweating after this last Monday night game. I was up by like 15 or 20 or something, and my opponent had Rashad White, Mike Evans, and Olave. And so it was a game where I just really needed this game to end in a tie 0-0. Neither of them crossed the 50-yard mark. And when the Rashad White touchdown went through, after I think the Godwin one getting called off, I couldn't even do the math. I was like, oh, what's a touchdown plus a PPR reception or half PPR, and how many yards was that? I was freaking out because this was the difference between winning and losing, and I won by 0.5. So
Hey,
we
stat
survived.
correction can still happen.
Oh, that's a good point. I lost the league yesterday by less than half a point, and it was on Rashad White's last run.
The touchdown?
Yeah.
Oh, we both almost okay. We were both sweating it out, but you came out on the other side.
Yeah, I came out on the poor side. All because I decided the last second to bench Cam Akers.
I'll allow it.
Had you been running Cam Akers as a starter before?
He was a desperation play. And then I was like, maybe Nico Collins will be good this week. I lost by, yes, it was 0.68.
That's actually a good segue into this Thursday night game of the Raiders versus the Rams. And so, Richmond, how did that make you feel not playing Cam Akers?
Like a I don't know. Not good. Not good.
Like a bologna sandwich.
Is he back though, Eric?
It's hard to say. I mean, he was still a bit of a plotter, but he got the workload that we were all hoping for, and he was really productive. I think it's clear that the Rams' game plan has shifted given their quarterback drama. But again, they were playing Seattle, who is one of the top defenses to go up against if you're going to play a running back. So it might have just been a Seattle defense thing. I didn't really love the metrics that followed Cam Akers after that game, but it seems like he's going to be trusted with some decent volume. So I think if you're in a pinch, he could be a viable flex play.
I mean, they really don't have anything else.
Yeah, I don't know if he's trusted so much as he is what is left.
Right. I mean, he had a good game, but if he doesn't have those 2 touchdowns, people are going, "Wow, I look smart not playing Cam Akers." I mean, 60 yards rushing, 3.5 yards per carry. Like,
That's
And
a
I
Najee
mean-
Harris line.
They were throwing out wide receivers with rushes quite often in that game.
Tutu
Like-
Atwell.
They just let everybody rush. Bilal or Brandon Powell. Yeah.
That's true.
Well, we did kind of get some clarity on Matt Stafford's injury now. He had a spinal cord contusion. So, in layman's terms, he bruised his spinal cord. Now, I don't know what you guys think about this, but one, I've had this injury and it
Oh.
sucked. I did it tubing on a lake, but football tubing, same thing. Also, I've had a couple athletes with it, and me myself. The only time I've ever seen this is there's generally, I'm completely blanking on the name now, but where your spinal cord is, it's a little bit smaller, and that's the reason it hits. There's a
Okay.
specific name. I'm completely blanking.
Like a
on it right now.
stenosis?
Yes, there it is.
Uh-huh.
There it is. There it is. My good Richmond buddy.
We know medicine.
Sometimes I'm smart. It's been a long day. But yeah, so that's the only time I've ever seen spinal cord contusions happen.
How long was your recovery, Matt? What was that like?
A couple months was what mine took, and it gradually gets better, but I was still
Yeah.
feeling it maybe a month or two later.
Yeah, I'm currently treating a patient with central cord syndrome, which is a contusion to his spinal cord. He had the counterbalance of a train barricade, like the ding, 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 fall on his head,
Nope.
and and he's in rough shape. I mean, like complete motor loss
It's not fun.
for like half of the muscles in his arms, loss of function in his legs, sensation disruption. It's painful. I mean, as you know, Matt, and it's nerves because of how complex of a structure they are in the body. They take a long time to recover, and that it just gets tougher or slower, really, with age. And Matt Stafford's one of the older quarterbacks in the league. So I think this is for sure career threatening. I think that he'll come back next year and see where that goes. But this is risky business.
It's definitely within the realm of possibilities. He decides to retire due to health, but we'll see. I mean, that's just speculation at this point. But they signed Baker, or they picked him off on waivers. So, we excited?
Baker got beat out by a XFL quarterback. So
And Sam Darnold.
first
Yeah.
round draft pick, Sam Darnold.
It's true.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think Baker's saving the day. I think the main reason they picked him up off on waivers is to just hopefully have a QB.
But I mean,
in the
the
building.
question I think that we should answer is: do we think that Baker can be a productive fantasy player for the remainder of the season?
With what they have, no.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. He couldn't get it done with DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah. No Allen Robinson.
No Cooper Cup.
No Cooper Cup. I mean, yeah.
It's
He
tough
does have
sledding.
Cam Akers, but
Good for him. They'll on the Raiders side, Josh Jacobs had that calf injury that he rested most of last week, but then played. I think it'll be much of the same here. Richmond, do you think? Are we worried about Jacobs?
I don't think so. I think that he's I think they're just going to keep being cautious with him through the season. I mean, they need him to be healthy. So, I think that he'll be a lot of resting throughout the week for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, and he's on a contract year, so he's trying to probably show that he can play through stuff and not be too worrisome about it.
Yeah, his production's there.
Really, the only other news is maybe Waller comes back. He's eligible to. There's worse ways. There's worse plays you can have at tight end if he's there. But he's got that hamstring injury, Eric, that I know
My
you don't
ears are
like.
burning. Yeah, I think that Waller may not return this season. I think that he's facing potentially a career-ending hamstring struggle where he may be in and out. Given his contract, I don't think he'll just up and retire, but this might be a Kadarius Toney situation going forward where we get spurts of games where he plays and then spurts of games where he's still nursing the hamstring injury. So I think he's a risky play anytime he's in going forward. Given the amount of time that he's been out because of this hamstring injury, it tells us that this is a severe hamstring injury. And so that puts him in the same bucket as Kadarius Toney. This is something where permanent anatomic changes occur. I'm not trying to add him to any of my rosters.
Yeah, and we've talked about this in the past, but we just really don't like those 30-plus-year-olds that start having hamstring issues. You've seen it with Julio and numerous other wide receivers. It just careers go downhill very quickly.
Yep, it's tough.
Well, let's move on to arguably the biggest injury of the week, and it was Lamar, and the Ravens are playing the Steelers this week, and Lamar ended up with a PCL sprain, which when we see a guy fall on his knee like Lamar did and then get up and hobble off, like that is commonly a PCL sprain. That is how it happens. What do we think? What do we think? How quickly Lamar will be back, and are we playing Huntley in the meantime? Eric, what do you think?
I think Lamar is a true week to week. I mean, this feels like a 2 to 4 week injury. I think they're leading the division, so they definitely want Lamar back as soon as possible. And in the remaining 5 games of the season, I think 4 of them are division games. So these are important games. I think that they're going to really – I think that they're not going to be conservative with this injury if at all possible. It will limit his ability to rush, and that's where we've gotten most of Lamar's fantasy production, really so far this season. So I think, when he comes back this week, the next week, or perhaps the following, you have to temper your expectations. But I think that this is a true week to week, and we could see him probably next week.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see, I guess, how quickly he returns. I mean, we know he's not playing this week, and then we'll just have to wait and see next week if he starts practicing or not.
Yeah.
On the Steelers side of it, last week we were a little bit concerned with Najee and his abdomen injury, but he ended up coming back. Richmond, did you think Najee performed well?
Yeah, I mean, I think that compared to his recent performances, I mean, I think that he did pretty well for having an abdominal injury. So I think we've talked about this before. Abdominal injuries can look like anything. It's kind of vague. So, I mean, 86 yards, he's averaged like five yards a carry. So I think that's a pretty good performance for somebody coming off something that's kind of unknown.
Yeah. Najee, I mean, he hasn't been the world beater that everyone wants him to be. But if you make him like a 4th or 5th round pick versus the 1st round where you took him, he's had a decent year. It's just he hasn't lived up to that 1st round hype that has happened.
I would expect at least one game over 100 yards.
That's fair.
Touch 99.
That's fair. But, it's whatever. He can't do it all. I don't know. Eric, do you have any thoughts on any of the Ravens or Steelers?
Don't start any of them if you can help it.
What if you can't help it? What if you're relying on Kenny Pickett this week to get you into the playoffs?
Then we will all have thoughts and prayers for your team.
Okay, thank you. That's much appreciated. Let's
Mark
go
Andrews
to-
is still acceptable.
Let's go to what I think is going to be the shootout of the week: Vikings versus Lions. Not a lot of injury news. Swift is back on the injury report today with an ankle injury. He was a limited participant. Wasn't a whole lot of other information to go on. Eric, this has been an issue with Swift all year.
It's been a saga. I think that this is a true, just like workload consideration. Where last week was Swift's really like breakout week since week 1, in terms of volume and time on the field. I think that they just view him as a really productive back, and they know that he's coming back from a multitude of injuries that he sustained early this year. This feels like they're just trying to give him some rest after balling out last week.
That's fair. It is also DeAndre Swift, and we can't be too sure. He might end up with 4 carries this week.
Yeah, the injury list is his home. That's where he lives.
He does love it. He loves it there. Snug as a bug on that injury report for DeAndre Swift. Jameson Williams returned, though. That's exciting, not for necessarily redraft purposes, but for dynasty purposes. I don't believe he recorded a catch. He really wasn't out there much, but Richmond, is it good to see him at least getting on the field now?
I mean, I think it's good to see him getting out there, getting opportunities. They had him out there in the victory formation. So, something good for him. But yeah, I mean, I think even just being out there, getting experience being on the field, I think that's pretty big for coming back from an ACL injury. When you haven't even touched the field, just being out there and like feeling like you're in game time action goes a long ways towards getting back to actually being able to contribute to the team. So, I mean, we all know his talent. So if you watch any of his playing time in Alabama, you know what he can do. So just being able to see him out there is pretty encouraging.
They're 1-0 with him on the field. That's all I'm saying.
That's a fact.
That is factual.
Undisputed.
So basically, I'm betting the Lions over the Vikings this weekend.
They're favored, I think. They're favored by
really?
2.5. Yeah.
No, they're not.
They are. Yeah. No, they really are.
Okay, I'm gonna take your word. I'm fact checking you after the show.
It's bona fide.
Let's move on because really not a lot of Vikings injuries and no other Lions injuries. So kind of a short list there.
Should be a fair game. Even Steven.
Hopefully the Sun God ends up with 3 touchdowns this week.
He might.
Oh man, I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. Can we just talk about that for a second? How good he is.
We'll save time at the end of the show. We'll just edit it out.
Okay, yeah. Let's move on to Jags versus Titans. Trevor Lawrence, it ended up being a sprained toe.
Yep.
Is that correct? Like, I'm confused. He was grabbing at his knee.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you watch the video, it could have been any number of things. I mean, he just got twisted, bent backwards, and yeah. So, yeah. I mean, if all it is, it ended up being a toe injury, that's probably amazing.
This just goes to show that the video can lie because it looked bad. Did y'all see it?
Yeah.
Like my mind immediately jumped to torn ACL. But
as a Jaguars fan, I thought we were done. I mean, we were done, but
you're done, but you're not as done.
You were cooked, but not quite done.
So I think this just is a prime example of we need to wait for all the information to come out before jumping to conclusions.
Yeah.
Isn't that
I mean,
right, Eric?
Don't jump to conclusions on Twitter.
But that's the best place to do. The only other side of it is on the Titans side of it. Their what seems like their only receiver is now in concussion protocol and did not practice today. What we kind of know with concussions, the way the landscape is right now, if they don't practice on Wednesday, they aren't playing on Sunday, pretty much.
yeah. And I know that he's had at least one prior concussion in college. I mean, this is football, so who hasn't had a prior concussion? But I mean, we at least know of one for a fact that I think he might have missed time for in college. So, I mean, that's definitely something to consider. I mean, concussions pile up. History of concussions can lead to prolonged recovery. So,
Now, Richmond, would you say he had a mild concussion, a medium concussion, or a severe concussion? Okay, I'm just kidding. We don't grade concussions, people.
His brain was bruised.
His brain, did he get a scan for it?
But I think the Burks. Actually, I was just thinking of this last week. I think that the Burks, like in and out this whole season, Treylon Burks' absences and presences, I think is a real testament to like how tough it is to come back from ACL when you're an older player, like Robert Woods, because this guy 2 seasons ago, I think 2020, was balling out. I think he was top 13 receiver. Last season, he was doing quite well. I mean, not all-star well, but he had plenty of weeks where he was over 70 yards. A few weeks, I think he was well over 100, and he was garnering a lot of targets. But he's recovering from ACL surgery, and as an older receiver, he hasn't done anything. Like, you are not wanting to start this guy on your roster. So, I mean, obviously, I think a part of that is just being on a different team, different quarterback, different scheme. But he's had every opportunity to soak up targets, and he's just really he's not getting anything this year.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, let alone not even considering the age, it's just hard for receivers to come back from ACL. Didn't you do a article one time about comparing running backs and receivers and
For
just
sure.
how difficult it is for receivers to come back?
Yeah, it's pinned on my Twitter at @FF_Nighthawk, and it demonstrates that running backs generally recover faster than wide receivers, and we've seen that plenty this year when it comes to Robert Woods, Chris Godwin, Michael Gallup, and even OBJ, Jameson Williams. Like, just you name it, and they've all had longer recovery times, longer ramp up times, and it's just tougher for them to be productive in their first year back. So
Cooper Kupp.
I don't remember Kupp's comeback. He was a stud though. No,
He did good after
yeah.
it, but he wasn't like the Cooper Kupp of
yeah. I mean, this isn't to say
craziness.
like it's impossible. For sure, no. We're all different as human beings on this earth, but
This
the
is
general
deeper than football.
but the masses. We're talking about trends, and Robert Woods. You could just look at him and look at the trend, and you could make a bet like this man is not going to do well this year, and he really hasn't. In Burks'
receivers over 28, he's 30. I mean, he was already on that downhill slide.
Yeah, that's true.
Already had a lot of things working against him.
Yep.
All I heard Eric say is that J.K. Dobbins should have been a stud this year and wasn't.
Did I say that?
No.
Between the lines.
Yes, I read between the lines. Well, speaking of not having wide receivers that can do anything, let's go to the Giants game. Who, I mean, I don't even know who their receivers are now, but I know Richie James was limited today.
We will have no Darius Slayton slander here.
Oh, I'm sorry, Darius Slayton.
He's been good. He's had a real breakout in his third year.
He has.
Most of them, I think most of his production has been on like 1 or 2 downfield targets each game, but he's consistently put up numbers, and I'm certain that a
I
lot
mean,
of people got him off of waivers.
he's definitely like a long ball kind of guy, but I mean, he's putting up catches and putting up numbers, and he's getting good targets from Daniel Jones.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to me, if this is dynasty, I'm selling, if I can, high on Slayton. You know, I think that once they get any sort of reputable receiving core, he loses those targets. Probably maintains the role, but loses the volume.
Right.
But you know, if I'm competing now, or if this is redraft, he's produced viable wide receiver 2 numbers week after week.
Yeah. No, he's been solid. And then the Eagles kind of remain healthy. So good for them. Makes me super happy as a Cowboys fan. We got Jets versus Bills. Zonovan Knight has been doing pretty solid for the Jets, but we have Michael Carter possibly coming back now. So Richmond, does Zonovan keep that role going forward, or does Michael Carter jump back into it, or what is going on there?
I think Zonovan keeps it. I mean, what has Michael Carter done this season otherwise? I mean, I wouldn't exactly say Michael Carter's been a threat in the backfield for the Jets. So I mean, I would still think that Zonovan should. I mean, now I'm not in the coaching room, so I have no idea what they're actually going to do. I mean, look at James Robinson. So, but I mean, I think the James Robinson thing shows that they're willing to keep putting Zonovan out there. I mean, they just traded for James Robinson, but they're still going with Zonovan Knight. So
that old Achilles injury bites again. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll have to kind of see what that role is. It might just be turned into this smorgasbord committee approach that we don't want really any of them going forward. Really, the only other news is this. It ended up Von Miller had a torn ACL. I was listening to the radio, and they were doing exploratory surgery to in his knee, and then saw it was torn. So, which is weird because normally it pops up on MRI. So I don't know if you guys heard that or had any thoughts about that, but it all sounded weird to me.
yeah, I saw that he ended up having a torn ACL today while I was at work, but I didn't see any of the details of the exploratory surgery. I think the words exploratory surgery are always a funny red flag.
Yeah,
Let's just
yeah.
cut you open and see what's going on here.
It's tough because he is an older athlete, and I think he's on a 1-year deal, or I think 1-year deal. But it was more than that. It was meniscus, it was ACL and cartilage. So I think that his recovery timeline is obviously pushed back than traditional meniscus, traditional ACL. I mean, you have to consider all 3 different pieces of anatomy, and this happened late in the season. So you have to think about, you know, realistically, when is Von Miller going to play again next year? Where in the season is he going to play again? And as an older athlete, you know, it's just more in the deck that's stacked against him. So I'm not sure that he'll be as productive when he returns. We're seeing how late into the season Chase Young is just now being activated, barely getting on the field. And he's a younger athlete coming back from ACL. So it doesn't bode well for Von Miller in 2023 and possibly beyond.
No, it definitely does not. Let's move on to Browns versus Bengals. Bengals have had a couple injuries here. Hayden Hurst, their tight end, who's actually, I mean, you're not like super excited to play Hayden Hurst, but he's been decent in the tight end spot at least. But he's already been ruled out with a calf injury. So I don't even know who their backup tight end is. Drew Sample? That's the name that comes to mind.
I believe
I don't know
Drew
if he's
Sample.
hurt or not. So maybe it's just a few more targets for Jamar Chase and T. Higgins there. Maybe even Tyler Boyd gets into the mix a little bit. But we've seen those calf injuries. They can just be killer to try to come back from, unless your name is Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, I think that Hayden Hurst is a classic case of just watch the practice report every day. But you really don't know, and we know for a fact he's out next week. So high volume for the receivers, like you said.
Yeah. And then Mixon was in concussion protocol for 2 weeks now. He was limited last Wednesday, and we are like, hey, there's a chance he plays. He ended up not playing. I saw today he got cleared from protocol today. So
Yippee.
go Mixon. Let's hope for a 5-touchdown game.
Yeah, I mean, Samaj Perine has done pretty good in his absence. I mean, he definitely has to be one of the top backups right now.
I could see him maintaining his targets with Hayden Hurst being out, just as like an outlet in the flat guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think he had like six receptions on top of all of his carries and yards last week. So
yeah, I could definitely see Mixon be a between the tackles guy with Perine picking up some catches.
Yeah, I can see that. Why not? All I heard was P. Ryan 10 catches this week. That's what I heard. And on the Browns side of it, you know what? I'm gonna go off track a little bit here from our show notes. What did we think about Deshaun Watson's return?
Oof.
Did he look like an NFL QB?
Holding back some jokes, but he looked awful, like really rusty. I think
looks like somebody hasn't played football in a while.
Yeah, that's really true. Most of his production came on the ground, I think, and I think he got totally bailed out by his defense, which was predictable. But this was a game where Nick Chubb should have had more drives to pick up some yards. This is one of the worst rush defenses in the league. Deshaun Watson should have. This was an easy reintroduction to the season, and it was clear that he hasn't been with the team.
Yeah, he looked pretty bad. We'll see going forward. I mean, obviously the Texans were extra motivated to play well against him, so there's that factor too. But we'll see. One of his targets, Njoku, missed last week. Limited practice today. Do we think he returns, Richmond?
I say limited practice on a Wednesday gives a good idea that he has a chance to return. Yeah, I would say limited practice on a Wednesday. I would say he has a good chance to get back in the game this weekend.
Yeah. I mean, and if he does return, it's kind of yet to see if he has that role he had with Watson at under center versus Brissett. And so there's a chance that, he just doesn't have that big of a role anymore. We kind of just have to see. Speaking of the Texans, the before mentioned Texans, and they are playing the Cowboys this week. There's not a whole lot to talk about here, other than Cooks is a non-participant today with a calf injury, but also the Texans are poo-poo.
They are the dudiest.
And that Cowboys defense looks very, very, very good. So I don't know if we want to spend a lot of time here, but
I think we just move on.
But I do want to know, does the Cowboys defense outscore the Texans this week?
I saw some life against the Browns. There were a few times in that game when I was worried that the Browns would lose to the Texans, worried because I had some money on the Browns. I think that the Texans offense outscores the defense.
Okay.
Well, they said Kyle Allen won't be the starter this week, I believe.
Back to the old mill.
They'll be going back to Davis Mills.
That's good. Good for them. Good for Davis Mills. Chiefs versus Broncos. Broncos look terrible this year, but to add insult to injury, Sutton's got a hamstring issue now. So, Eric, we know how you feel about him.
It's bad.
It's bad. We don't like it.
Yeah. And we've seen this a lot from athletes coming off of ACL. This is Sutton, this is Chris Godwin, this is Gus Edwards. It's tough. It's a tough injury to come back from, and I think Courtland Sutton is going to do everything he can to be out there, but he could miss a few weeks easily.
And they're not playing for anything, so why push him through something?
Yeah, they're also not playing for a draft pick, so
yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel now about how I combated all the Sutton offers I got in the offseason.
I sold my only share, so for
We
the
sold-
112, the 2022 112. I forget who I took there, so I'd have to go back and look. But yeah, the only other news, Judy came back. I thought he looked pretty good. I don't know if y'all thought so, but
I thought he looked great in limited action. And I think
Yeah.
he played like 40% of the snaps, but he looked really good, like the guy that you drafted him to be.
yeah, he almost looked like the best he's looked all year.
I'd say.
So maybe he needs to take 2 weeks off now and just play every third week.
That'd be bad for my fantasy team, but honestly, that might be good for him.
But if you could make it to the championship,
Okay.
then he's
Yeah.
back for the. So I don't know. Anyway, let's move on. Bucks versus 49ers. 49ers QBs can just, well, I was going to say can't catch a break, but I guess they can catch breaks because that seems like
LOL.
all they do. Jimmy G fractured foot. It's already been announced he's out for the year. Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy is now the starting QB for the 49ers. The biggest thing is, Eric, does this scare us for all the weapons that the 49ers have going forward?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think that you look to, if anyone's going to lose less value, it's the short yardage guys. So that's your CMCs and Debos. Ayuk is most at risk. I think like 50% or close to that number of his targets downfield were off target with Brock Purdy in. That's Ayuk.
Not great.
Ayuk did say that Brock Purdy verbally acknowledged those misses and said that he's going to feed him in this next game. So that is a tantalizing quote, but he's going up against the Bucs, who are not a bad defense. So I do have a patient who I guess grew up with Brock Purdy, went to school with him, said he's a real good guy. So I think he will try his hardest to be good.
Don't doubt it.
But this is not an offense that I'm investing in for the rest of the season if I can help it.
I mean, yeah, I'm rooting for him. I don't know how good he really can be going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one advantage that Brock Purdy has in this offense is that Jimmy G has just shown us that you can be a fantasy relevant, pretty decent quarterback, and you just take the layups. Like, Jimmy G was not a stud by any means. He didn't have to make any plays, but he's got, I think, 3 of the biggest yak offensive weapons on the team. So just get the ball in their hands, take the layups, and the fantasy numbers can come.
For sure.
This is true. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what they do with Jimmy G, I think, whether they put him on IR or not. I was reading into like their IR situation because they have a lot of guys on IR right now who they might want to take off depending on how they're doing. And I think they only have 2 that they can pull off the IR list. So we'll have to see what actually ends up happening with Jimmy G and whether or not he makes it on the IR and whether or not they think he has a shot to come back towards the end of the season if they need him.
Yeah, that's a good point, Rich. I mean, I was an IR noob until a few weeks ago. I didn't know that you can only pull off 8 dudes from the IR.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that actually says a lot as to who gets put on IR, who doesn't. because like if they think, well, I might want this guy later, then he might not even get put on IR, but they know that he's going to be out for at least 4 weeks.
That explains a lot why we were seeing, because I've seen it a few times where guys are out like 4 to 5 weeks but didn't get put on IR.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you don't want to. I mean, they have Elijah Mitchell, and they have a defensive tackle. I think it was that could come off. And I think they have a few other guys who are on IR. So I guess it'll end up being like towards the end of the season and seeing what position they're in to see what they would need. So, I mean, they might just keep Jimmy G off of the IR in order to not have to burn an IR spot on him.
This really sucks for Jimmy. This is like the second year in a row where he's playing well, might be looking to move somewhere else in the offseason, but then gets an injury that was probably going to derail all that.
I think the opposite. I mean, I think that he showed that he's better than probably half the quarterbacks in this league.
He showed that last year.
Yeah, did he? Yeah, maybe he did. He definitely showed it this year. I'll say that.
So I checked the article I have. They've already pulled 6 guys off of IR, so they only have 2 IR spots to pull from for the rest of the year.
Okay.
Wow.
That does explain a lot.
Let's see. Leonard Fournette came off that hip pointer injury. Eric, how do you think he looked? Because I know you were watching the game.
Yeah, I didn't think he looked very good. He definitely looked like the plotter on the offense, and I think the narrative of the final drive spoke the most to this offense going forward. When you look at when the question is Rachaad White versus Leonard Fournette, and they had Rachaad White in for the do or die game-winning drive. So, I mean, this is clearly running back rotation where the balance is shifting in favor of Rachaad White, and injury or maybe not even related, but Leonard Fournette he looked slow.
Saying that, you're bringing up a good point, but I believe they were both in. Because
I don't remember.
If I remember correctly, after the Rachaad White touchdown, I think Leonard Fournette was one of the first ones there to like celebrate with him, which could only happen if he was on the field.
I was at volleyball, so I have no idea.
Well,
these are details trapped in my brain that I'll remember during a dream in a few weeks.
Oh, dreams. All right, well, let's move on. Panthers versus Seahawks. Not a lot to talk about here other than Kenneth Walker and his jammed ankle. So I don't know if either of y'all in y'all's PT experience ever had someone with a jammed ankle. Because I've never heard that before.
I've never heard of such a term. So I could not tell you whether I've seen one or not, because I feel like there has to be a different kind of diagnoses.
I mean, it could be like a synovitis, or, I think
like an impingement, maybe.
Yeah, and that would essentially be like a type of bone bruise, right? But
yeah, I've seen impingements. I mean,
I think some of the language coming out of that camp, not from medical professionals, but it actually read to me more like a tibialis posterior, like tendinitis is how it came across to me, which would be different than a jammed ankle. It would be like rotator cuff tendinitis, but a muscle and tendon in the foot, and that's an injury that just needs rest. That's a 2 to 4 week injury depending on severity. So I think all that is to say, like, it's very unclear as to what exactly is wrong, what he's suffering with, but he's definitely going to be out this week. I think that's clear.
He didn't practice today, so that's a red flag going forward. I definitely took it as more of a bone bruise type, but I mean, it's all speculation right now, because that's the only information we've been given is a jammed ankle.
Yeah, and Pete Carroll has not been the best at explaining injuries in the past, so.
Well, He may be a lot of things, but knowing when to get rid of your franchise QB, he is good at. So,
That's facts.
all right, let's move on. Probably the exciting game of the weekend. I mean, there's a reason it was flexed to the Sunday night game, and they took away the Russell Wilson-led Broncos out of that spot. Dolphins versus Chargers. Lot of injuries kind of in this game, like little nagging stuff. I mean, Waddle kind of had like an ankle injury last week that it seemed like he wasn't going to return on, but then he ended up catching some passes later in the game, but didn't look good necessarily. So, I mean, Richmond, are we worried about Waddle?
I don't think so. I think he'll be good to go. I think they're going to be. I mean, just the whole nature of this whole offense. I think they're going to be cautious with, but I think he'll be good to go. This is like I don't know. I feel like this offense is like a like Formula One car. It's like very high octane, finicky.
Yeah.
Like don't want to push it too much. But
I mean, we saw what happened when
They're
their tackles are
explosive.
missing. Like, it's kind of maybe that threw a wrench into that Formula One car a little bit there.
yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, Eric, are we worried about Dolphins this week? Do you know if their tackles will be back or not?
I think we don't know, but there's a lot of pessimism. And I think that their signing of, I think former first round tackle Eric Fisher tells me enough to think that they're not going to be available for this game. And Eric Fisher has been a free agent this season because he's been very bad in the past. I think he played with the Redskins. He played with, I think, the Giants and maybe a number of other teams. He's not been a good fill-in player. Yeah. So the Chargers, they have a defense that has not been playing up to par so far, but they have playmakers, and the Dolphins just showed us that they have a very leaky offensive line. So it should be a more even matchup with those injuries in play.
Yeah. Mostert was dealing with a knee injury last week. He didn't really have a good game, but neither did Jeff Wilson. I mean, I think I saw they only ran the ball like 8 times. So it was really hard to judge just how good they are. But what we do know is Mostert's off the injury report this week, at least so far. With his history, you never know. Knock on wood, he might pop up on it on Friday, but we'll see. It looks like Mostert's going to be good to go, and versus that Chargers run defense, it's exciting to try to play some running backs there.
Yeah,
and
he definitely had the snap share and the volume over Wilson, which is a good sign.
Yeah, I think you could honestly play either one of them coming into this
both.
week, or both. Why not both? ¿Por qué no los dos?
Both is good.
Both is good. Great movie. Mike Williams should practice this week. I don't know. We've talked about coming off those high ankle sprains. We don't like it to begin with, and then he re-aggravated it. Richmond, do we think Mike Williams plays? And if he does play, are you playing him?
I don't
Sorry
know.
to put you on the spot like that.
It's. I really don't think that he's worth playing at this point. I mean, it's hard to trust him coming off like this layoff, and like we said, high ankle sprain for somebody his position. It's hard to predict. It's hard to know that he'd be actually like ready to go game speed. So, I mean, being able to just practice is a pretty big step, but I don't think just being able to practice for 1 week means you're game ready.
We talking about practice.
Practice. Not a game.
Not a game. Practice.
We'll edit all this out for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
For sure that's from Ted Lasso, right?
Master editors here. Keenan Allen is actually looking pretty good from his hamstring injury. So take that, Eric. What do you think about that?
I think it's great. I'm so happy for him. I think that every game that he goes out there, he's at a really high risk of re-injuring it. So as long as, but as long as he's starting, you're gonna play him and hope for the best. So I'm glad that it's working out for him so far.
If you put a if you could put a number indicator to how big of a risk that is, what would you put?
60%.
Okay, cool. I was seeing there.
Gonna hold you to that.
Okay, sure, happily.
Heard it here first. There's a 60% chance Keenan Allen re-injures his hamstring.
60% chance of rain, fellas.
60% of the time, it happens every time. So, and then Everett has his groin injury. I don't know. I didn't see if he practiced today or not. I don't know if either of y'all noticed.
I think he's good. Yeah, I think he did well last week, and I don't have any indication of setbacks. It's
Sweet.
seeming good to go.
Sweet. So you can do worse at the tight end position, that's for sure. Because it is rough there. And then we got a Monday night game. Patriots versus Cardinals. Real who's who. Mac Jones versus Kyler Murray. Looking great. Rondale Moore, not at practice again. Richmond. Is Rondale going to play this week? Because I really need him to in some leagues.
I don't know. Groin injuries are like next to hamstrings. I think groin injuries are like one of the biggest like lingering injuries. It's so hard to rehab a groin injury, like especially in season, especially playing wide receiver position where you're needing to get downfield. I don't know.
He does not go downfield. Don't start that. He catches it behind the line of scrimmage and gets his yards after the carry. Or after
that's just because Kyler Murray can't see that far down the field.
Boom, roasted.
Boom, take that, toddler Kyler Murray.
Yeah, but yeah,
and all your millions of dollars.
If you're not practicing Wednesday, I mean, you can't even go out there and like run routes and sprint. I don't think you have a shot of playing on Sunday.
That's fair. This does bring up a good point. By now, Kyler Murray should have prestiged in Call of Duty. So, Eric, are we playing Kyler Murray?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he hasn't been the top tier guy that you've wanted him to be this year, but I think he is a top 10 quarterback on the season. So if you've got him, and especially if it's a Superflex league, you're playing him.
I mean, he's top. I mean, with his rushing upside, I mean, it's hard to discount him. So,
yeah.
Although at his height, he should be discounted.
We'll see. Marquise Brown looked okay, I thought, coming back, and he should only keep looking better and better and better. So probably playing him going forward.
For sure.
Now, kind of a weird one because, I mean, this is the Monday night game, so it is hard to get information right now. But Jacoby Myers got a head injury and went into the blue tent. And it is crickets right now if he's in concussion protocol or not. So do we just have to wait and see if he practices tomorrow? Is that the game plan?
Yeah. I think it's a wait and see on that. I didn't actually see the injury, so I'm not sure the extent. Not that necessarily seeing a concussion means that you know how bad it is, but
it looked bad. I mean, he got walloped, like stonewalled.
Stonewall Jackson. I didn't see it. I don't know.
It looked bad.
Was it worse than Burks?
They both looked bad, honestly.
I saw that one.
Jacoby, his reaction wasn't the same as Burks in terms of like reaction to getting walloped, but it looked rough. I mean, it was one of those that like if this was 5 years ago, the commentators would have been replaying the hit over and over again at different angles and on slow-mo, and it was like one of those.
And this is when you can see his life leave his eyes.
Yeah, like especially in the era of like NFL blitz, like that would have been That would have been posterized for sure.
That's kind of funny. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see with him. And then Damian Harris did not play last week, and everyone wanted Ramondre Stevenson to just have the game of his life. Did okay, but wasn't anything super special. Are we worried about Damian Harris returning? Because I really don't want him to eat into my Ramondre shares at this point.
Yeah, I mean, he still missed practice. So it's hard to say exactly where he's at with that status with having missed last week.
Ramondre looking good. I think this is a prime Ramondre bounce back week. The Cardinals defense they have not been up to par.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Cardinals aren't that stingy of a defense either.
No.
So, well, that just about does it with the games and everything. I mean, did we miss anything? I don't think so.
I think we're good.
Well, let's move on to our flag plants of the week. Eric, let's start with you. Who do you think your flag plant of the week is?
All right, my flag plant of the week is Jerry Jeudy. If you watched the game last week, then you would have seen that in limited action, Jerry Jeudy was the guy. I mean, he looked trusted by Russell Wilson. He made the catches that you wanted him to make. These were tough catches. He was often open, and he was productive with the limited work that he was given. So I think in the absence of Courtland Sutton, Jeudy is going to soak up the targets. I feel like Russell Wilson has to be getting desperate for his touchdown numbers to go up. He's on the brink of beating the number of toilets in his new mansion. I think it's still 8 to 12, maybe 9 at this point. But he's getting close, and so I think that he's itching for a passing touchdown. It's going to be either Dulich or Jeudy, and I think it's going to be Jeudy.
I got a question for you, Eric.
Yes.
Does Brock Purdy end the season with more touchdowns than Russell Wilson? He's already got 2.
If you ask me rest of season, Brock Purdy or Russell, the answer is Brock Purdy. If the question is...
Does he catch up? That's what I'm asking.
Dollar bet. You want a dollar bet? Which one I go with?
Can I take Purdy? Because I don't want to bet.
No,
on Wilson.
I want to do Purdy.
I'm not betting on Wilson.
Consensus Purdy then?
I guess so. Richmond. What do you taking Brock Purdy to catch up to Russell Wilson?
You can win $2 if you bet
I want to go Purdy just for the memes.
It's all right. There goes three for Purdy. 3 for Purdy.
Ask me this at week 1, 2022. Who would have more passing touchdowns? Brock Purdy sitting behind Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo, or Russell Wilson? And this is a crazy question to ask.
You know what you would have said? You would have said, "Who's Brock Purdy?"
Yeah, that's right.
Be like, Brock Purdy's on a team?
Is that a player you made in Madden? Like, what?
It's my created player.
Yeah.
Looking real good right now. Anyway, Richmond, do you have a flag plant?
Yeah, my flag plant is Tyler Huntley. We already know what he can do as Lamar Jackson's backup. We know he has the legs to get it done on the ground. We know he has Mark Andrews to catch his passes. So Devin Duvernay.
Devin Duvernay.
So,
no, that is Patrick's flag plant of the week.
Yeah.
You can't steal it, Richmond.
So my flag plant will be throwing touchdowns at Pat's flag plant. So
I swear Devin Duvernay actually has a good week this week. Anyway, my flag plant, I'm going – I thought about going Greg Dortch if Rondale Moore does end up missing. Greg Dortch is also kind of iffy with a thumb injury that he had, though. So that was all too questionable for me. So I'm just going to go Zeke. I think that's fair. I think a lot of people are off the Zeke train right now because Pollard's been balling out, understandably so. But Zeke's still been getting his since he came back. And now he goes against the Houston defense that is a poo-poo versus the run game. So I think Zeke very reasonably could have 100 yards and 2 touchdowns this week. And if not the 100 yards, I mean, I would probably bet on the touchdowns.
I mean, I agree. I mean, Zeke has not been bad by any means, and he's been getting carries. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like it's Pollard's backfield. I mean, Zeke is still out touching Pollard.
They both look good right now.
Yeah.
Look great. Like, not mad about it.
I
as a
like
Cowboys
that,
fan.
but is this not our next man up? He should be our flag plant related to injury.
I don't know. I mean, I can go Greg Dortch if y'all want me to,
I don't want to corner you to Dortch, but
I don't have anyone else, and so I picked him because I figured people
like
were
it.
off the Zeke train.
Sure,
and thinking
you're a
Pollard
Cowboys
was,
fan. It's allowed.
Just let me have it.
Yeah.
Let me have
Zeke
it.
it is.
All right.
My flag plant is a guy who scored a touchdown the last 8 weeks.
Yeah.
My flag plant is Pat Mahomes.
Fire him up off waivers for sure.
All right. Well, that just about does it for our show. Thought it was pretty good, guys. That was pretty good. Let's end it with where people can find you, Richmond.
People can find me at RP Laterio, DPT on Twitter. Rich Laterio on MySpace. If you guys want my Zenga, let me know.
What's your Venmo?
If you guys want my Venmo, hell yeah, send me some money.
Eric, where can people find you?
All right, I'm the Nighthawk PT. You can find me at FF_Nighthawk.
And I am Matt at Fantasy Fair. Check us out on YouTube and now Spotify. Thanks to Eric, he got that up and running.
Apple as well.
And Apple. Oh, are there others?
We're out there.
We're out there. People can find us now.
MySpace.
All righty. Well, that's exciting. Check us out. Have a good one.